Ruchim Habaim. This is we're in the month of Elul, and we're approaching the high holidays very soon. Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, Sukkot, and I was just reviewing some study, and in Parsha Pinkas in the Chumash, it actually lists all the holy days in Bamidbar, Numbers chapter 28. Through this chapter, it explains the Tamid offerings, Musaf, Rosh Chodesh, the new moon, and then goes into the holy days. Pesach, it gives a description of Pesach, Shavuos, continues through chapter 29, Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, Sukkot, and Shemini Atzeres. And so it goes through the description of the high holy days. And it's interesting because each of these holy days, one is required to bring an offering. So, example, in chapter 28, verse 18, it says, "You shall offer a fire offering, an elevation offering to Hashem, 2 young bulls." So it tells you, so it says you shall offer in verse 19. If we go to the Hebrew here, that word is vehik ravtem, which actually means, so you shall offer, it really means like you shall draw near. On Shavuos, we see this again in, I believe, let's see here. It says here, you shall offer, verse 27, you shall offer an elevation offering for a satisfying aroma to Hashem. So again, you shall offer here is the word vehik ravtem, draw near. So Pesach, Shavuos, you come to Yom Kippur, and it talks about the offering, verse 8 in chapter 29, you shall offer an elevation offering. So if we go here into the Hebrew, it also says vehik ravtem. Okay, and even on Sukkot, it says, where are we here? You shall offer, in verse 13, you shall offer an elevation offering. So, and here we are, vehik ravtem. So all the holy days are all worded, you shall offer, except one holy day, Rosh Hashanah. In the English, instead of saying you shall offer, it says you shall make an elevation offering. And if you go to the Hebrew, it's actually va'asisem. You shall make. And what do the sages say? That literally it actually is saying you were to make yourself an offering. Not you shall offer, but you shall make yourself an offering on Rosh Hashanah. And so that's interesting because also at the Akedah, the Avraham Avinu, he offered Yitzhak as an offering to Hashem. And instead of Yitzhak being offered, Avraham Avinu was commanded by Rabbono Shel Olam to bring Yitzhak as an offering. When Hashem saw Avraham was prepared to slaughter his precious son on command, he told Avraham that he passed the test and he should not harm Yitzhak in any way. Avraham then wanted to bring a korban to Hashem, and he noticed a ram entangled in the bushes nearby, and which he then offered a korban in place of his son. And you can find this in Bereshis chapter 22. So if we go to Bereshis chapter 22, we see here this encounter. And Pirkei de Rabbi Eliezer informs us of what was to be done with the 2 horns of the ram of Avraham Avinu. See, they were to both be used as Hashem's shofars. So when an offering is to be offered for Hashem, the Shulchan Aruch says that every piece of that offering has to be used. Nothing can go to waste. So obviously, the ram's horns are not going to be burnt up. And so the sages say that they were Hashem's shofars. The shofar made from the left horn was sounded by Hashem at Har Sinai, where the Torah was given, at the Matan Torah. So and it's interesting because we read about that on the High Holy Days, we read about Shavuos during the High Holy Days, but it's Rosh Hashanah, it's Yom Kippur, and we're reading about the giving of Matan Torah, not just because there was a shofar blast at the mountain, but because this was one of the horns that was used with the ram that Abraham offered. And so the shofar from the left was sounded by Hashem at Har Sinai when the Torah was given. The larger right horn was made into the shofar that would be used at the time Mashiach is to herald the gathering of all the Jews from the four corners of the world. As we say in the Shemoni Ezra prayer, Tekah Shofar Gadol, in the Shemoni Ezra, the term Shofar Gadol, this refers to the shofar that will be used with Mashiach. And I believe in the Brit Chadashah, it even says that Mashiach will come with the sound of a trump, which is basically the shofar. And so this is the meaning. And we read this section in the Machzor on Rosh Hashanah about Abraham offering the ram caught in the thicket. So it actually says in the Torah here in Bereshis that Abraham raised his eyes and saw. So it says, Abraham es enav vayar yinei ayil achar ne'achaz basvach bekarnav vayelech Abraham vayechach es hayil. So it says bekarnav. This is an interesting word. So it says here in the English that, and Abraham raised his eyes and saw, behold, a ram, and afterwards caught it in a thicket by its horns. Bekarnav. This is what it says in the Machzor, but there's something unusual about this word, Bekarnav. It actually, for horns, according to a ram in Hebrew, is not this word. It should actually say shofaros, but it says Bekarnav. Why? Bekarnav is actually horns that have to do with a cow. They're the horns of a cow. So what's going on here? And the root word of karnav by its horns is keren, horns. And this actually can mean salvation. And we see that this is also to do tikkun for the cow, the egel zahav, the golden calf. But not only that, this has to do with salvation. We say in the Shemoni Ezra, in the Davidic reign, Etzamach David Avdecha Merat Tatzmeach Vekarnot Rum B'Shvasecha Kilu Shvasecha Chavinu Chol Hayom Baruch Atah Hashem Matzmiach Keren Yeshua, Keren, who holds the glory of salvation to flourish, Keren, which actually has to do with the horn. Okay, and so there's two stages of redemption. The two horns represent two stages of redemption, the left and the right, the short and the long. Okay, and the sages say that this was not a regular ram. They say this ram was created on Erev Shabbat. On creation, when Hashem provided a ram for Abraham, the Satan showed up and he tried to jump on the ram to steer it off a cliff. And this is how it got caught in the thorn bush. Why? Because Satan knew this was the horn of salvation of Mashiach and would begin tikkun for Adam. And the sages explained that the ram created on Erev Shabbat transcends both this realm and goes into the unseen realm, but not limited to the physical world, both worlds. Okay, from one end of the world to the next. This is like the shofar that has a small hole in the bottom and a big hole at the top. And so this is what we read on Rosh Hashanah. And another interesting thing here, we read about, so it says here right in the Machzor, that God remembered Sarah and she conceived on Rosh Hashanah, so too Hannah, another barren woman whose prayers were answered, was conceived on Rosh Hashanah, and Hashem remembered Sarah. The chapter before this concluded with Abraham's prayer that the women of Abimelech's court be able to conceive. As soon as he prayed for them, Sarah herself was conceived. So there's a lot of information in the Machzor. And one other thing here, that we also read at the sounding of the shofar, Tokia, we actually, the Kahila responds to these verses here in the congregation. It says, Min HaMetzar, from the straits, Karasiya, and Nani Ba Merchav Ya. And then it says, Koli Shamata, my voice you have heard. And we continue to read, and then it says, Rosh Devarecha, your very first utterance. And it goes on and goes on, and it says, Arov Avdecha, be the guarantor of your servant. Shasha Nochi, rejoice do I al im rasecha, over your word. Tov ta'am, good reasoning. Need vos. I don't want to read through the whole verse, but these initial letters actually spell in the Machzor, Kara Satan, to tear away the Satan. Tear away Satan. And this is what we're doing on Rosh Hashanah. We're announcing the king. We're showing honor to the king. And so just a couple of interesting things here in the Machzor. And you see, the Talmud Rosh Hashanah 16b answers that the double sounding of the shofar is to confuse the Satan, the angel who persecutes Israel before the heavenly tribunal. Okay, and there's a certain number of shofar blasts that we listen to on Rosh Hashanah, and this is just things that I've been looking at while I was going over, just preparing for the high holy days myself. And not only that, even on Rosh Hashanah, we read about Hagar and Ishmael, how they were basically, when Sarah basically told Abraham to let them go, take them out, and they ended up in the wilderness. And I'm just doing this from memory right now, but Hagar was weeping. Ishmael, they had no water. And they were pleading. Ishmael really means to hear from Hashem. And Hagar left Ishmael his presence to not watch him die. But at that moment, they were crying out to Hashem, and Hashem heard their prayers. And the sages say that the angels asked Hashem, what are you doing? Why are you having mercy on Ishmael? This is the one that's going to persecute and cause trouble to Israel. He's going to start a new religion, and is going to be ferocious. And Hashem responds, I don't look at what's in the future. I look at now. And they were crying out for Hashem, and Hashem's mercy is that great that no matter where you're at, you can always turn to Hashem. You can do teshuvah, and you can cry out to Hashem, and He will hear you. If you're in an honest place, if you're sincere, Hashem will hear your cry and have mercy on you, because His mercy endures forever.